Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Brandon Wynn with Critical Failure, and this video is on gnomes. A small race and somewhat disappointing for me because of their height, but you know what, it's the race. But this is going to be first talking about the characteristics, stats of the gnomes, uh, their sub-races and the such. I have Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes with me, so I'm going to be able to read a little bit of it. I'm going to be giving more of the Deep Gnome because that's only in Mordenkainen's what I see. So I'm going to be reading a little bit from them. To what it seems like, they're just pretty much a more Duragar-like of the gnomes, except they don't kill the other types. But I'm going to be talking about the classes that these little guys will be great for, at least for me, talking about how they act, how they pretty much are as a collective, not talking about just a specific character, because to me, any race can be any class. It just depends on how you make your character, but this is more for their type of collectiveness. So getting straight into the statistics of the gnomes, the regular gnome, which I'm calling it, has an intelligence of +2. They naturally live about 350 to 500 years. Their size is small, their speed is 25, and they have a dark vision of 60 feet. So because they're so small and they they have tiny legs, they move 5 feet less than larger creatures of medium height. They get a a feature called Gnome Cunning, which gives you advantage on all wisdom, intelligence, and charisma saves against magic. That's very useful. I know several ways I could go very, very well for your character. The Forest Gnome gets a intelligence modifier of +2 and a dex modifier of +1. They have something called the Natural Illusionist. You get minor illusion as a cantrip, and intelligence is the casting modifier. And you get speak with small beasts, which basically you get to convey through hand signals and speech very simple ideas to things like squirrels and such like that, small creatures, into which I usually keep such creatures as pets. There's a rock gnome, which you get an intelligence modifier of +2 and a constitution modifier of +1. They're the more gritty type of gnomes, not like the deep gnomes. These guys are more like hardy and stuff like that. They get something called Artificer's Lore. If you're making a history check related to magic items, alchemical objects, or technological devices, you're pretty much going to be, instead of adding a standard proficiency modifier to your roll, it's your proficiency modifier multiplied by 2, so twice your proficiency. That's really cool. They get something called Tinker, which essentially you get proficiency with the artisan tools, and you spend an hour and 10 gold worth of materials making a tiny construct. You can make, I would say you can make almost anything, but the 3 that were given for the in the player's handbook were the clockwork toy, which you can make it into any type of thing, like a frog or a tiny dragon or something like that. It can move 5 feet in any random direction on each of your turns, and it makes it sound similar to whatever it's made after. So if it's a frog, it's going to be sound like a frog. If it's a dragon, it's going to be sounding like a dragon. You make a fire starter. It's pretty much producing a tiny flame, and it can light a torch or a campfire, and it's an action to use it. So what I read from it, it can be anything from that, and a music box, so it essentially turns off when it finishes a song or when you close it. I didn't really write much on that because it's legitimately what it is. But going on to the deep gnome, which I have right here, you get a ability increase of intelligence +2 and a dex score of +1, because it says in the book that it's the same statistics of the regular gnome. And you get superior dark vision, which is really cool, and you get a dark vision radius of 120 feet. My only issue with this is that since these guys, have superior dark vision, how come the drow have, sunlight sensitivity? Because essentially the offset was you get to see better in the dark, but you can't be on the on the surface world during the sunlight. It's like that makes no sense why won't these guys have it. But you also get stone camouflage, which you get advantage on stealth checks to hide in rocky terrain and underground, which I can see a lot of uses for that. And you get an extra language, which is really cool. I don't see them necessarily knowing an extra language, but I think that's really cool just to have. But there's also a optional deep gnome feat, which is called, I'm going to massacre this, but it's Svirfneblin. Yeah, Svirfneblin. Svirfneblin magic. I don't know how to say that. But yeah, it's for the deep gnome. And you essentially get to cast non-detection on yourself at will without any magical components, which I usually don't have magical components in my campaigns. You get to also, and I'm reading this straight from the book, you can cast each of the following spells with the ability, it's blindness, deafness, blur, and disguise self. You get to regain the ability to cast those when you finish a long rest. And I thought it was, this is me not reading it correctly, but I thought at first when I read it that it's one of those spells at one point, to where you can only choose one, and then you have to do a long rest and you get to choose between three. But no, it's one of these a day, essentially, because if you're, depending on how you do the long rest, because I do it 4 hours as a long rest. But you know, I thought that's really cool, being able to do that once, essentially once per long rest. But you know, reading upon the lore of the gnomes, they seem to be like very curious, lighthearted characters, similar to the halflings, to what I'm reading. They're really carefree and adventurous types. They like doing stuff, and they're not intentionally trying to hurt anyone. It actually takes a great deal for them to actually want to hurt someone. And the forest gnomes are more of like the druidic people who live in the forest, like hippies, and the rock gnomes seem to be type like essentially rip-off dwarves, to where they're more hardy and they're more serious, but they have no issue having fun. Now the deep gnome, these guys, like I said earlier, sound like the Duergar, at least I think I said it earlier. They're like the Duergar of the gnomes, but they don't attack others. They're definitely hardy. They don't really care for many things except finding their own type of deals and stuff like that, like gems and stuff like that. They don't really care for anything else but finding their own treasure. The difference is that they live about 200 to 250 years, so they have a considerably shortened lifespan. They grow to adulthood around age 25, and it's because of the Underdark. So yeah, so I thought that's really cool on that, and that usually these guys are essentially just trying to survive. They kind of go towards more of the neutral side of things, and they just seem to be more caring about themselves than anything. And another thing about the gnomes, they hate kobolds. So I'm going to do another video for kobolds at some point. But talking about the classes that these guys would be good for, they would be definitely good for, I'm going to go by race. Standard gnome, great for all races if you like, if you're going at it in a just player type of view. But talking about it in a like lore way, like I see them being great at things such as sneaking and stuff like that. And so I would say rangers, rogues, monks if you're going for more of a stealthy monk, bard, because they're definitely charismatic creatures. For the forest gnome, I would say rangers, rogues, druids, wizards. I say the entire class would be great for wizards and sorcerers. The rock gnome would be more of the fighter, like up in front type of hitter. So I wouldn't say paladin for if you're trying to be more of like a tanky character just for lore wise, because they don't seem to be much of that type of race. But you know, they could be great for paladins, clerics, and stuff like that, fighters, because that's just thinking about it statistically, that's how they would you would want that +1 in constitution for that. And for deep gnomes, they seem to be very similar, because it's literally a +1 to dex, and I'm going to make sure it's a +1 to dex by turning this page, turning another page. Yeah, it's a +1 to deck, so I would say rangers, rogues, and such like that. But just based on lore, these guys seem to be more of the, again, Durgar-like murderistic type of people, even though they're neutral. So if you're wanting to play more of a fighter, you should go rock gnome. If you're going for more of a rogue, stealthy character, deep gnome, forest gnome, and such like that. Now, like I was talking about earlier, I don't really play with smaller races. I've played a gnome, I've played a halfling, I've played a dwarf, I've played a kobold on a couple occasions. I don't personally like the smaller races for me, because it's just, when I imagine playing a character, I imagine myself in a way. So I don't really like imagine myself short, because I'm like 6'3", so that's a weird thing to look at, is imagining myself shorter. So I don't really like that, and that's just my point of view. And so I don't have an issue actually putting them into campaigns. I just don't think about them very often, so that's why I don't. And my up and coming campaign, I actually have gnomes and halflings in it. I have kobolds, and I'm making a lot of characters. I think I already have to make like 100 character sheets for NPCs as it is. So I have a lot now I'm thinking about it. And I'm only creating more. But gnomes are a very curious race. I definitely am going to start enjoying to play as them. Definitely see how I can twist things. I might actually make the deep gnomes into similar to Duragar, to where they're more chaotic, evil, chaotic neutral type of people. So, only time will tell. I know Ed doesn't like these races because they're short. I agree with him. But I know in the future we're going to be going over these, all these races again together, or just touching up on them depending on what new lore goes out on them, depending on the books that come out. So yeah, these guys seem to be loving of everyone, at least the regular gnomes that aren't deep, so rock gnome, forest gnome, and the standard. So these guys seem to care about other people, so they would seem to be very cool classes and very cool, a very cool race just to have in general. So message in the comments like what you guys would or have played as for a gnome. So it's just interesting seeing how everything works and how you guys played as these gnomes, and tell me what you dislike or like about the gnome, because I want to see what you guys think of it rather than me, because I'm only one person. I've DM'd for a while, but I really like seeing how other people think of such races and stuff like that. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Go follow us on our Instagram, critical.failure. I'm trying to figure out what to do next. I'm probably going to, actually later today, I'm going to be doing a video that I talked about already, the Blood Hunter Order. If you're confused by that, it's not actually about the Blood Hunter Orders themselves. Sorry about this. Just moved the book and it kind of made everything fall. But Ed and I, we've talked about the Order of Levistus on our previous videos about the Blood Hunter, and it's going to be talking about that. So it's more like factions under the Blood Hunter orders, called like such things as the Profane Soul and such like that. And you'll see more of it in my campaign, so hope you guys will enjoy that. This is really the end of the video. I don't really have much to talk about the gnomes. After this Blood Hunter Order, I'm probably going to do the dwarf, so I'm going to have to start working on the dwarf, and then from the dwarf I'm going to make Genasi, because I have a thing for the Genasi, and then from the Genasi I have another video, so I have a couple of videos lined up. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please go over to critical.failure on our Instagram, and don't be afraid to DM us on what you guys want us to do. Don't be afraid to comment below what you guys want us to do. I'm starting college, so it's going to be a little bit harder for me to do things because I'm working late nights and stuff like that. So it's going to be weird because I'm really the only one between Ed and I to really record. So I'm going to be definitely trying to record at least once every other 2 days, like I said on Instagram. But depending on how it works, I might be doing a video a day with how everything is, but depending on how much I'm working on the campaign stuff. So it's a little bit of an update video here. So yeah, I'm going to do another video today, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. So again, I'm Brandon Wynn with Critical Failure. See you guys.